21, verses 1 through 6a. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. And I saw the holy city, the New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "See, the home of God is among mortals. He will dwell with them as their God. They will be his peoples, and God himself will be with them. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. Death will be no more. Mourning and crying and pain will be no more, for the first things have passed away." And the one who was seated on the throne said, "See, I am making all things new." Also he said, "Write this for me, write this, for these words are trustworthy and true." Then he said to me, "It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I will give water as a gift from the spring of the water of life." Our gospel lesson is from John chapter 11, verses 32 to 44. When Mary came where Jesus was and saw him, she knelt at his feet and said to him, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her also weeping, he was greatly disturbed in spirit and deeply moved. He said, "Where have you laid him?" They said to him, "Lord, come see." Jesus began to weep. So the Jews said, "See how he loved him?" But some of them said, "Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying?" Then Jesus, again greatly disturbed, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone was lying against it. Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, "Lord, already there is a stench because he has been dead for 4 days." Jesus said to her, "Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone, and Jesus looked upward and said, "Father, I thank you for having heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I have said these for the sake of the crowd standing here, so that they may believe that you sent me." When he had said this, he cried with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out!" The dead man came out, his hands and feet bound with strips of cloth, and his face wrapped in the cloth. Jesus said to them, "Unbind him and let him go." The word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God.
In our call to worship this morning, we read a line from a Celtic blessing written by the poet John O'Donoghue. It goes, "When we are confined inside a dark house of suffering, may moonlight find a window." In our gospel story, Lazarus is confined inside a dark house, inside a tomb, a cave. There is suffering all around. Mary is weeping. The people are weeping. Jesus is weeping with them because a great loss has occurred. It's hard to see the light for them. It's hard to know how to let the light in, how to know how moonlight could find a way in through a window in that situation. How moonlight could come into that dark cave. We all have our dark caves. We all have places in our lives where it's hard to see the light, where it's hard to know how to let the light in. Sometimes those dark places come when we lose someone close to us, someone dear to us, who has made us who we are. And part of why we gather today for All Saints' Day is remembering those people. Other times those dark places come from other losses or changes we experience. From difficult relationships. From burdensome secrets we carry. Or from our ongoing inner struggles with fear or cynicism or anger or doubt. None of us is without our dark cave. No person that we meet is without a cave. The philosopher Plato has a famous allegory that uses the image of a cave to illustrate the human situation. Imagine that a group of people are stuck in a cave with their backs toward the entrance, facing the wall, chained so that they cannot turn around. Light travels in from behind them and hits the wall they're facing. and there are puppeteers back there casting shadows against the wall. But all that these people know of the world are those shadows against the wall. Then imagine that one of these people becomes unchained. He is able then to turn around and to see that the shadows are not the whole story, that there are puppeteers who are causing them. He is able to turn around and see that there is not only shadow to the world, but also a great light. And he is able to step out into that light and be perplexed and amazed by its intensity, by colors and brightnesses that he has never seen before. It's hard for him to go back and explain to the other chained prisoners what he's seen, because they don't have any reference points for it. It's hard to explain color. It's hard to explain light. I wonder if that is how it is for Lazarus and his loved ones in our story this morning. Lazarus is confined inside his cave, inside that dark house of suffering. And then Jesus calls him out and tells the people who are weeping around him to unbind him and to let him go. That's what Christianity is about. It's about another reality beckoning to us in the midst of this one. A reality that is hard to imagine when we are so used to watching the shadows on the wall. Paul the Apostle puts it another way in 1 Corinthians 13 when he writes, "Now I see in a mirror dimly, but then we will see face to face. Now I know only in part, but then I will know fully, even as I am fully known." Christian faith is about another reality beckoning to us in the midst of this one. A reality that is hard to imagine when we are so used to seeing in a mirror dimly, when we're so used to watching those shadows against the wall. It's a reality that is beyond us, and yet that is constantly breaking into our world, peeking in like moonlight through a window. It comes to us in our caves, whether those caves are ones that we've made for ourselves, or whether they're ones that we can do nothing to prevent. That other reality, that world of light, comes to us, and it won't stop pursuing us until we are unbound and free and fully known. And then it's a reality that asks us to unbind and to free and to know one another. When we read the book of Revelation, which we heard a little bit from earlier, it has wild images of beasts and angels and lions and lambs. When we read it, it's easy to think that it sounds just crazy, like crazy talk. Even today, which is a bit of a tamer passage, we hear words about a new heaven and a new earth, a holy city coming down through the clouds like a bride to her groom, about God dwelling among us and making all things new. Even these words can maybe not be the simplest to understand. And I wonder if it's maybe because the author was struggling to explain color or light to a people who was used to seeing shadows on the wall. Maybe it's because the author caught a glimpse of another reality, of a world of light that was breaking into our world, peeking in like moonlight through a window. My great uncle was someone who caught a glimpse of the light in spite of his challenges. He was the kind of guy who could memorize all of the Latin names of dragonflies, of every species of dragonfly, but had trouble getting his own shoes tied in the morning and getting out the door. He wasn't religious in any traditional sense. And because of his quirks and rough edges, he became estranged from certain members of my family, and I never got to meet him in person. But after he died, I went with my mom to his house to clean up his things, which included eclectic collections of old science books and a homemade printing press that he had engineered himself, and piles of papers. While I was going through one of those piles of paper, I came across a passionate letter that he had written to his friend Helen, who was struggling with depression and ended up in a psychiatric hospital. The letter's compassion struck me, especially knowing that my great uncle who was writing it was so complicated and sometimes even difficult himself. He wrote to Helen, "Self-doubts, qualms, and difficulties of self-worth are mysteries that God sees fit to visit upon some of us. Such mysteries form shadows and darkness along roads we have to travel, and light has to be made to shine in these shadows. Either light of our own, light brought by others, or light from beyond. Looking for and finding the light has to be a normal part of the journey. Otherwise, knowing that we have to travel the road, we find shadow and darkness growing and becoming fearsome and menacing. Your own light, dear Helen, can do more good than you expect. Keep it shining. Let me add mine, and always be ready to welcome that light that comes from the one perfect source where all is well." These words, and knowing the complexity of the person who wrote them, knowing that he too is one who had his caves, was a reminder, and is a reminder to me, that I see only in a mirror dimly when there is so much more to people and so much more to the world. When there is so much light that we can look for. As Christians, Christ is the light who we not only look for, but who also looks for us, who calls us out of every dark cave, out of every dark house of suffering, and says, "Unbind them and let them go." As we heard the choir so beautifully sing, Christ brings as we will hear the choir so beautifully sing, Christ brings the deep peace of the running wave, and of the flowing air, and of the quiet earth, and of the shining stars, and of the gentle night. This deep peace is one that we know in glimpses, but that one day we will fully know, even as we are fully known. It is the peace that our faith says is where our loved ones are departed to, and where we trust that we're headed as well. To return to John O'Donohue's poem, he writes, "When we love, may the dawn light lighten our feet. When we come to search for God, may we feel the rush of light spread slowly inside the color and the stillness of the known world." In the next moments, we'll have an opportunity to remember those we've loved. You'll be invited to come forward and take a white carnation and to place it in the vase, as a way of remembering someone who has shaped you, and as a sign of their lives still bringing life and light into our world. That vase will then go back to where it is now by the communion table, as a way of reminding us that when we celebrate communion, we don't just celebrate it with the people here in this room, but with people from all times and all places. But those people we've loved are still here with us. And then as you head back to your seat, there's a small bowl which will be moved down there. And you can feel free to take one of the papers in that bowl that has a small feather charm on it and a verse from Isaiah. Feathers are a Celtic symbol for ascension, and they also are a reminder of those words from Isaiah. "Those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not grow faint." May we be lifted up on eagle's wings, trusting in the love that is eternal. May the deep peace of Christ, who is the light of the world, be with us always, now and always. Amen. is a sharing in the body of Christ. And the cup over which we give thanks is a sharing in the blood of Christ.
Christ.